What time is it? Fight!
Welcome to the MMA Podcast.
Check this out.
Get all the latest news, interviews, and stars of the MMA world. Hosted by yours, John Boy McElroy. So tune in, everyone, right here to the MMA Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Martial Arts Chat Podcast. And on today's show we have another MMA Roundtable. Our panel today will be giving us reaction to UFC 196, looking ahead to some of the big fights announced at the UFC Unstoppable press tour, and finally some picks and predictions for what is expected to be the biggest UFC card ever. Of course, I'm talking about UFC 200 in July. And joining us on the panel today we have Kevin Jones of the Main Event on Double T 97.3, Adri Kumara of Escobar BJJ, and Brian Schuel of the Illegal Elbow podcast. Gentlemen, a pleasure for your time and for your thoughts here today on the Martial Arts Chat Podcast. Let's get down to it then. The dust has settled, so to speak, and it's been over a week now since we've seen Nate Diaz choke out Conor McGregor. But let's start with the new women's bantamweight champion, Miesha Tate. She had a chance today to... I had a chance, I should say, to rewatch that fight. The tenacity of Tate, even when she's doing that, never give up attitude, it's more admirable every time I see it. And Holly Holm, she loses her crown in her first title defence. Tate the winner by rear naked choke. Adri, I'll come to you as I like to start with you with the BJJ aficionado you are, and hear your grappling thoughts first on the finish, and what did you make of Tate versus Holm as a contest?
Yeah, it's exactly what Holly said during the post-fight press conference. That I think Tate just took advantage and capitalized on her weakness, which is her grappling, which we haven't seen before. We never saw it before. Even during the Ronda fight, Holly didn't even got to the ground, and this time we saw her ground skills, and it turns out she beat the queen of women's MMA, but she's still beatable, and Miesha Tate exposed her weakness on their fight.
Absolutely. And Brian, I'll come to you next, sir. We've heard Holly Holm calling for a rematch, and we've heard talk of obviously Tate versus Rousey 3 as well. But what's been your thoughts on this whole saga, and where do you see both ladies going from here?
Some people have been talking about Holm versus, not Holm, excuse me, Amanda Nunes getting a title shot. And I'm like, I'd like it, but at the same time, I don't know if it's really worth it, because there's so much you can do with the Ronda, Miesha, and Holly thing going on. There's so much you could do with that right now. I guess mixing somebody in like a Amanda Nunes could make it more interesting, because just more matchups you can make out of it. But no, there's really no telling right now when Ronda's actually going to be back. They're saying November.
Yeah, she's keeping us in the dark.
Talked about earlier maybe, because now she might be fighting Miesha. So you know what I mean. I would see her coming back a lot sooner for a Miesha fight, but which is be obvious.
Yeah,
she'd want to do that.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah, and finally, Kevin, we have a new women's champion. What's in store for Cupcake, and of course for Holly Holm, since we crowned a new queen, if you like?
Well, I mean, I think Holly Holm deserves a rematch more so than Ronda Rousey does. But you got to strike while the iron's hot. There was not very much interest in the third Tate versus Rousey fight before this happened. So, I mean, the UFC is definitely gonna make that fight. Holly Holm, I think she deserves the rematch, but this is real life. We're grown ups. Deserves ain't got, as William Monday said on Unforgiven, deserves got nothing to do with it. It's all about the money. I don't think we need to interject a fourth person into this deal. I don't think that's smart money wise for the UFC. You let this thing play out. What I see happening is Rousey not really having too much of a problem with Tate again on the ground, and submitting her, and then getting the rematch with Holly Holm. You got two money fights, and then where we go from there, who knows? If Holm beats her again, then we shuffle the deck and just do it all over again. It's always about money with the UFC. nowadays, and that's how I see it going. I mean, Holly had great moments in the fight with their stand up. One of the things that Tate did very well in the fight was I saw it even when she was warming up. She was going to sit there and wait, and she waited her out instead of, Rousey was kind of coming at home, kind of like a mummy, reaching for her, and when she reached, she wasn't there. She was already out to the side using her lateral movement to get away from that. And Tate sat back and waited for her chances to shoot on her. And when she did it later in the fight when Holm was a little more worn down and that strength was gone from her. So yeah, I mean, I'd totally like to see Holm and Tate fight again. I think that'd be the best fight for the fans out there. But as far as a money fight, you put Rousey and Tate together, the interest is back. Rousey hopefully comes out with the title, and then they take it from there.
It's exciting. It's exciting times, regardless of I was going to say who's the champ. That's the wrong turn of phrase. I think it's just exciting that it's not Ronda dominating. We've got a nice little mix in there now, and it's like you said, Kevin. It makes for money fights. When it's this time, it's not just Ronda versus. You've got Tate, and you've got obviously history there with Ronda, and of course you've got Holly Holm taking the title from her. So interesting times, regardless of who's fighting for the title. I think, guys, if you don't mind, we'll move on to the main event. I mean, just incredible what went down. Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor. Kevin, I'll start with you first, sir. You called it here on Martial Arts Chat that Diaz would win by submission. I hope you made some decent money off that, sir. But what next for Diaz and obviously what next for Conor McGregor, do you think?
Well, a $30 bet over here paid out about $105. I also made a little more money making people give me the odds around the campfire while we were watching it. So I was definitely very jubilant after it happened. As I said before, I mean, you couldn't overstate the 25. I mean, moving up 25 pounds in weight, it's unheard of. There's a reason there's weight classes. Yeah. And while he did, and Diaz talked after the fight about he knew it was going to take him a while to get going, just having a 2-week camp before the fight. Mm-hmm. And, Conor looked good in the first round, but the punches weren't bothering Diaz most punches don't bother the Diaz brothers. Those guys are kind of rockheads, and that's well known. Mm-hmm. For where we go from here, I mean, I think it's still the Conor show, man. I mean, I think the guy gets to fight whoever he wants to fight next. As strange as that sounds, I think that's still the case from here. Diaz, there's rumblings that they're going to make this fight for UFC 200. People aren't going to act excited about seeing it, but once they get on those press tours and they start talking to each other again, everybody will get excited. And as long as Conor McGregor's involved, it's going to be excitement leading up and excitement when they're getting the cages, and there's going to be big buys for the event. I'd like to see Diaz get another shot at Rafael dos Anjos. I don't think he can beat him. But that's kind of what I think. If we were saying who deserves what, I hate using the word, but yeah, I mean, I think he's in line for big money fights. Like him and his brother both been talking. I mean, they want the bigger money fights, and that's what makes sense right now. He's got the juice after this win. There's no reason not to put him out right in the forefront and keep him relative in people's minds and grow the fan base, because people know him now. A lot of people are paying attention to Conor McGregor. And as far as like casual fans, us guys on the show, I mean, we're diehards and we've known about him for years and years. But these new guys that are just getting into the sport in the last couple of years, I mean, they know the Diaz brothers now, and I think you got to keep it going with him, and Conor, wherever weight he fights at or whoever he fights, it's kind of up to him still.
Yeah. Adri, what about yourself? I know you're not the biggest McGregor fan, but what did you make of it all? The welterweight fight. I'm not surprised. The whole spectacle. It was just amazing, right?
It was amazing though. I gotta give it to Conor though. I mean, he fought 2 weight classes above his usual weight class. Was it an intelligent choice? I don't think so. Well, I think us, like Kevin said, the diehard fans, we knew what's coming for Conor and Nate Diaz. We knew Nate Diaz was a beast. Is still a beast. Yeah, but one thing I don't agree with people who are saying that Diaz BJJ won that fight. It's not his BJJ. I think it's more his boxing skills won that fight. Yeah. If the punches didn't rock Conor, I don't think the choke will work and finish the fight. So it really came down to the boxing of Diaz and the combination of his boxing and his BJJ. What's coming next for both Diaz and Conor? First things first, I'm gonna put it out there. I think Conor should go back to featherweight and defend his title because that's the right thing to do.
Yes.
No matter if it's a match with Frankie Edgar or a rematch with Jose Aldo, I'll go with both. I mean, I like both matches. And as far as Nate Diaz, yes, I agree with Kevin. He should get a shot at Rafael dos Anjos because there's no other clear contender right now. And Nate Diaz just showed the world showed the world again and show the new and casual fans that he can fight. That he is. Also one half of the Diaz brothers that, everybody knows Nick, everybody loves Nick Diaz, but this couple of years back, Nate has been, some people has forgot about Nate, and it's time to put Nate on the spotlight again. Maybe a fight with Dos Anjos will be something very exciting, maybe even for UFC 200.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Brian, what was your thoughts on UFC 186 main event, and also what's next for you think for Diaz and for McGregor?
I actually expected Conor McGregor to do a lot better with Nate Diaz. I was kind of surprised that he wasn't able to, at least get him, don't get me wrong, he did do good, got him bloodied up, but it's, you're talking about a lot of scar tissue there.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not that hard to bloody up a Diaz these days because they've been in there for so long. But, and I think the rematch, for them guys to rematch at 200 makes no sense whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like all it is it proves that Conor wasn't as humble as everybody thinks he is. And it proves to me behind the scenes, I think he's a little butthurt and wants another shot. And it's like, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
It doesn't, it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't make him a better 145 pounder.
I mean,
you know
people
what I mean?
have been saying to me that, there's 1.5 million reasons why to do the rematch. And I think, Conor versus whoever, we still get that. It doesn't matter really. Well, it matters who the opponent is, but my point being, Conor versus whoever is going to do big numbers. So the fact that they've went, or they're potentially going with this rematch, 100% agree with you. It's just silly, I think. There's other matches to be made.
And I think, Nate Diaz, like, Kevin and you guys have said, with him getting the shot at RDA, I don't think that's a horrible idea. I mean, it's where his weight is already.
True.
He could do a full training camp, whatnot. But I don't know. The whole rematch thing just doesn't make sense to me. And I think Conor, I think it's the right thing to do. Like the other gentleman said, it's the right thing to do for him to go back and defend his belt. You know what I mean? But Conor probably cried about it and said, "This is what I want," and I mean, respect to the guy. He's made a lot of money for the UFC, whatever. Yeah. But it just proves that this guy's such a cash cow now that he's got a little more say in what goes on than UFC does alone. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, we've spoken about this before. This is a guy who's came along, probably one of a kind that's had this much leverage. I don't remember a fighter ever in the UFC. Sure, there's been times where guys have negotiated certain fights, but I don't think anyone's had the leverage power. I think is what you're trying to say that Conor McGregor's had, and if he gets this rematch with Diaz, then that is clear that he's exercising that. Let's move on, guys. Next section of the show for you gentlemen, and as you probably saw at the UFC, they put out their Unstoppable press conference. Some honourable mentions, obviously, were DC and Jones. They're back and forth. Rocco Weidman going at it. Some great trash talk with Cruz and Faber. That was one of my favourites. But there are a lot of exciting fights called at that press conference. And I'd like to go through just a few of them and get some of your predictions, if you like. So we'll start with some of the heavyweight fights that are announced. It appears, looks like we've got a little contenders tournament and a title fight obviously ready to go as well. But just some of those fights are announced. Orlovsky versus Overeem, which is obviously taking place in Rotterdam in Holland. We've got Ben Rothwell, JDS. And of course the title fight for Doom, he defends against Stipe Miocic. Kevin, I'll start with you, sir. Lots going on in the heavyweight division. Firstly, who do you have, or who have you got in the heavyweight title fight, and who would you like to see emerge as the next number one contender?
Ooh, the heavyweights, man! It's getting hairy up there. It's there's a couple. As far as the Verdum and Stipe Miocic fight, I think that Miocic is a lot tougher of a matchup than Kane's going to be. I've been very vocal about thinking that Verdum was going to win that first fight, which he did.